Alright, hey there. Today I wanted to take a little look at how to build a template in REAPER for Kontakt instruments. So as you'll see on screen, this is what my finished template looks like. And having something like this is extremely helpful for starting new projects, as it just allows you to have all your instruments where you want them ready to go, and it just means you can jump straight into things. So you'll notice that I'm working with orchestral instruments, but this will apply to you whatever you're working with, whether that's electronic or anything else, so long as they are Kontakt instruments. And with that in mind, let's jump into this fresh project here and start building our template. So the first thing you want to do is, of course, insert a new track. And you can go ahead and select input none for this one, as this will be our parent track. So once you've done that, go ahead and open your effects window, and we'll want to load our first instance of Kontakt. I would recommend selecting this 16 out option, as this allows us to have 8 instruments within this one instance of Kontakt. So once you've done that, jump up to options here and select build 16 channels of MIDI routing. So this will build these 16 tracks over on this side, but as I said, we'll only be working with 8, so you can go ahead and delete 9 through 16 like so. Once that's done, jump back up to options and select build multi-channel routing. This will bring up this very confusing window. You don't need to worry about that just yet, just select yes and it will bring up these tracks here. So just go ahead and make this a little bit more clear for you by putting these MIDI tracks under our parent track. And as I said, we'll only be needing 8, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that means you can delete these last 3 here from 18 to 20, like so. Now, what we'll need to do is back over in our effects window, click on this little icon here and select outputs. Now we have, as I mentioned earlier, 8 MIDI tracks, so we will need 8 stereo output tracks. We already have 1, so click this little plus button and we're just going to go ahead and add 7 more like that. So at this point, this is probably going to be the most tedious part of this exercise, but don't worry, because you'll only have to do this once, and then after that you can just duplicate your tracks. So what we need to do is, you'll see here our first stereo track is routed to 1 and 2. We will need to do the same for the rest of our stereo tracks, so this says 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. However, you'll notice when you get to your to 11 and 12 that it is taken by these auxiliary tracks here. So what we need to do is open up this window by clicking on the numbers down here, and then click up here, scroll down to the bottom until you find not connected, like so. And you'll need to do this for all your auxiliary tracks. It'll bring up this window, which you don't need to worry about because we're not running any plugins yet. So as I said, just go ahead and do those for your remaining auxiliary tracks so that they're all disconnected. Once you've done that, you're ready to route the stereo tracks. So click down here, and then up here, so we've already got 1 and 2. This is 1 and 2. This is 3 and 4. It's very badly labeled, but if you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just make sure you click the right one, and then double check after you click OK that they are in order, because once you get to the higher numbers, it can be a little bit confusing to keep track of. So just go ahead and do those for all of your stereo tracks. Alright, so now that you've done that, you should have all of these labeled from 1 through to 16. And that now means that it's time for us to load in our first instrument. So I'm going to go ahead and just load in some strings. What do we got here? Just some longs. And so that means I can label this parent track strings, and it means I can label this MIDI track longs, as that's what I've got here. You can call these whatever you're using. And then after that, what we'll need to do is select these 8 MIDI tracks here, just shift select them, and right click this record arm button and select monitor input. So this will affect all of these 8 tracks and it will allow us to hear what's coming through the instrument. So now if I record arm this, we can hear what's coming through. So it's really that easy, and you can also go ahead and remove this output window now, but you can now do this for your remaining 7 instruments which you have available in this instance of Kontakt. So maybe next you want some shorts, so we can bring them in. But what we'll need to do is, you'll see here that for our first MIDI track, it's routed to output 1 and MIDI channel 1. So for our second track, which we're going to call shorts, we need to route this to output 2 and MIDI channel 2, which it already is. So now when we do that, we can hear the shorts. So what's really happening here is that if we bring up our mix window, we'll call these MIDI tracks here our input tracks, and these ones down here are our output tracks. So if I record on this longs track, you'll notice that we're getting MIDI data through the input track, and of course our audio through our output track. So in order to make this a little bit less confusing for us, what we can do is we can open up the track manager with Ctrl-Shift-M, and what we can do is we can hide our output tracks in our edit window, like so, and we can hide our input tracks in our mix window, just like that. And so now that that's done, it's much less confusing as to what's going on, and you can label these to correspond exactly with your input tracks. So now if I play longs, it comes through the longs output track. Just that easy. So now that you've done that, there's one other thing you want to double check, because it's been a bit buggy with this version of REAPER, which I'm currently running 5.311. But you'll see here in this first track, our routing is routed to 1 and 2, and for this other track it's 3, 4, and etc. So these last 3, they don't end up routing correctly for some reason. So you'll want to make sure that for this third last one, you click this button here, stereo source, and 1112. So now we have 1112 instead of just 11. For this second last track, the same, it just says 12. This will need to be 13, 14. And for our last track, of course, it will need to be 15, 16. So with that in mind, you should be good to go to load in the rest of your instruments, and then we will have our whole first instance of Kontakt completed. And so of course you're going to want a few more tracks than just this one instance of Kontakt. So what we can do is select all of our tracks in our edit window, as well as all of our tracks in our mix window, and then simply Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, and boom, we've got a whole nother set of tracks loaded up. So maybe for this one we don't want more strings, we want some brass. So we bring up our effects window, get rid of these, and let's load in some brass. So some longs, some shorts, and of course remember to select the corresponding output. And then if I record on these, brass and staccato brass. So just like that, we now have a second instance of Kontakt loaded up. Now, of course, you're going to get a bit confused because, you know, we have all these tracks that are kind of separated from each other, and it's hard to keep track. So the easiest way to do that is to select all of the tracks in your strings or whatever you've got in both the edit and the mix window, and then right click, track color, set tracks to custom color. I like to have mine in blue. Of course you do whatever you like, and then boom, it's much easier to see how these correspond to each other. So of course you can do that for your next set as well. Right click, track color, set tracks to custom color, and we'll put this one in yellow or whatever you like, and then you can see that you know the brass corresponds to these channels here, and the strings correspond to these channels here, and the brass is coming through there, and the strings is coming through there. So that's the majority of it done. The other thing I will mention is that some people have a bit of trouble with automating, because if you try to automate your volume in this channel here, it's not going to work because it's actually coming through this channel, which isn't on your mix window. So the easy way around this is actually to just, if you've got your MIDI channel here, you just open that up and then you'll have your velocity and whatever. You just create a new lane of automation using one of these plus buttons, like so, and you change this to volume, wherever that is, it's number 7 here, and you can just automate it like that, right? And so that solves that problem. The other thing I want to mention is that when soloing and muting your tracks, on here looks fine. You can actually do the same to your corresponding track down here, but it doesn't seem to be doing what it actually is doing. The visuals are a bit buggy. So if you have this one longs track soloed, it appears to solo the whole folder track. It's really just soloing the longs track, and the same for mute. It doesn't actually show any kind of muting visual on your edit window, but it is there. So just something to be aware of. And other than that, you should be good to go. You should be fine to, duplicate more of these Kontakt instances and create your whole template. And then once that's done, obviously just click File, Project Templates, save project as template. I call mine Orchestra. You call yours whatever you like. And then I also like to save it as an actual project itself, just in case, just so you're not losing it accidentally. And that's pretty much it. So I hope this helped you guys out. If you did enjoy, I do have some more videos coming up about working with Reaper and composing in general. So if that's something that might interest you, feel free to subscribe below. And that's all for now. Thanks. Bye.